Today we are here with Professor Francesco Ferrini from University of Florence. Francesco is one of the main personalities at Institute of Sustainable Plant Protection as associated researcher. Please be so kind, can you tell us what's your position and what your main research activities are?
I'm now a full professor of urban forestry and arboriculture at the University of Florence, and I'm now also the president of the plant nursery district of Pistoia, which is the biggest in Europe, mainly devoted to ornamental plants and trees and shrubs and so on. And apart from this, I'm also doing some research with my collaborators. So we are doing research in urban forestry, urban planting, and selecting trees and shrubs for planting in the urban environment. But our main target is now try to understand the physiological mechanisms which regulate the tolerance to drought and other stresses, but mainly drought, because drought is the most important stress in the Mediterranean basin where we live.
At this moment, the climate change and these connections are very strongly influencing the urban environment. Where do you feel that arboriculture can help in this, with solving that?
Well, yes, because, we couldn't live without trees. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we have to protect our trees and to find a way to allow them to fully express their potential to mitigate and adapt to climate change. Climate change is really a problem all over Europe, but while in the north of Europe, it can be somewhat seen like a good change. Temperature in the summer is nicer, people can go to sea, and they can also cultivate trees that couldn't be cultivated until a few years ago, but in the Mediterranean basin, and I think all over the world, there are some areas that are really facing a huge problem of long summer drought, which are sometimes interrupted by extreme events. I cannot call them hurricane or tornadoes, but we are experiencing in the last few years some local events that are really, really extreme, with rainfall that can reach 250 millimeters in just one afternoon, and that is provoking floods, local floods, and also a lot of damages to agriculture, and also some people died in Italy in the last 2 years.
And do you think that these events can be mitigated by arborists, so by people who take care not for forests, but...
Yeah, because if you care for trees, you care for us, you care for everyone, having a full shape trees in the best health possible means that these trees can mitigate the impacts of climate change. In particular, for example, they can act against the stormwater, the huge rainfall events, and they can help us in managing stormwater because they can reduce the speed of the rain, they can reduce the amount of rain that reaches the soil, and at the same time they can also help us when the flood is coming. They can slow down the speed of the water, and so in this way we can be more prepared to face flooding, especially local flooding. But the most important thing is that with their canopies, they can intercept a lot of water. A medium-sized tree can intercept up to 3 cubic meters of water per year. It means that if you have 100 trees in a park, which is not so dense, you can intercept up to 300 cubic meters of water. This water can be slowed down and can reach the soil and can recharge the aquifer instead of going away very, very rapidly.
In one of your recent studies, you examined the use of seaweed extracts to enhance tree growth. How can you see this innovation to come to reality?
Oh, sometimes research is not so immediately brought to the production. Sometimes it's hard to have these new research results really used by nurserymen. We are trying to do that also because we have done this research in a nursery. So that nursery is going to use seaweed extracts to improve the quality of their plants, to improve the growth of their trees and shrubs, and this will be, also good for economic reason because they can have trees and shrubs ready to be sold in a shorter time and in a better quality.
And can you shortly summarize what the outputs are? Is it a supplement for some support of growth, or
They produce hormones and they help us. The plants to absorb, minerals from the soil, and mostly they help plants to absorb water from the soil. So they can maximize the use of water. So the water use efficiency of these plants is much higher, and that's the most important thing. So with the same amount of water, you can have better results.
your research has highlighted the impact of vegetation in mitigating urban air pollution. What types of plants or trees are the best mitigators?
That's a good question because, we have to plant the right tree in the right place. We have some indications out from our research that some trees are more adapted compared to others. Broadleaf, evergreen broadleaf trees are probably better than deciduous species, and they are also better compared to conifers. There are some species that have shown to be more effective in reducing urban pollution, but it really depends on the kind of pollution and also from the management of trees, by the management of trees. Because if you prune them, if you top them, you completely reduce. Sometimes you annihilate any possibility to reduce the pollution. So it's not just the species, but how to care for trees. Mm-hmm. That is the most important thing. So we have found differences between street trees and urban park trees, between pruned trees and unpruned trees, irrigated trees and non-irrigated trees. The most effective are obviously trees that were not pruned, that they were in urban park and they were irrigated, which is quite easy to understand.
By pruning, you mean really heavy reductions of crown?
Yeah, topping. I mean topping.
Okay.
Not a light pruning, just topping. Yes.
Okay, you've been involved in developing smart monitoring systems for historic gardens and urban trees. How do you think these technological tools will transform tree management and maintenance?
It can change a lot. Using field data and satellite data can be the future, not just for managing historical parks, but also for managing the urban green. We have done a couple of research, we have done a couple of publications about this in some historical gardens in Florence, and you can detect the stress status of trees before with the satellite data. Mm-hmm. And then you can have the results from field data. Combining these two kind of data, you can have an idea of how to manage the trees and how are the trees that suffer the most the stress, the urban stress, like drought or whatever, pollution or whatever.
And can you summarize what components the system consists of?
Sure. We have used satellite data. We have used also special kind of camera to take pictures of with infrared, thermal camera. We have used several different devices, and we have just seen that combining field data and satellite data, especially NDVI index, is probably the best thing to do. It's quite, cost effective.
Mm-hmm. And did you add to this data set even data from soil moisture?
Yes, right. Yeah.
Your lecture here in Vilnius was based on highlighting the importance of keeping and increasing the biodiversity in our cities. Where do you think arboriculture helped to achieve these goals?
I think that arboriculture and arborists have a prominent role in achieving the increase in biodiversity in the city, because we are the one who are in charge of selecting trees and selecting, shrubs for the new urban planting. So by using different species compared to the past, by using also different varieties from the past, can help us to improve the results of our plantation. Because, anytime you plant a tree, you make an investment, and your investment must be profitable in terms of, environmental performance. And so selecting different trees from different species can increase the environmental performances of the urban green. It has been demonstrated that using, for example, different species for creating an urban forest is more effective in reducing the urban heat island, and it's also more effective in reducing pollution and so on. So it's important to have the highest diversity, biodiversity in the city that you can have. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy task. We need time and to change also our mind. We are, as a European, we are accustomed to see, avenues made of the same species. We have to change our mind. It will take time, but we have to do it.
Quite a lot in our part of the world, we take the experience from the more southern parts, obviously, because the climate change is designed like that. So would you, or what would be your advice for choosing plants for Czech Republic?
That's a good question. I think that actually we should do in Italy, to start selecting trees which are now on their upper native range, up north. So you have to select species that are now not suitable for, Prague or Brno or other cities, but they are just, a few hundred kilometers from those cities and in a climate which is warmer but not so warm. And so to start, to start helping nature to go up north. That's what we have to do, to help nature doing the job, because it takes to go up north between 20 and 40 kilometers, it takes 100 years. We don't have this time, so we have to accelerate the time needed. And probably if we do that, we can have good results in probably 15, 20, maybe 30 years, which is a reasonable amount of time to help our world.
One of the factors coming from this, let's say, movement in tree species, etc., is spread or possible spread of diseases and pests. What are your experiences?
You are right. We have to select those species which are known to be quite tolerant, quite resistant to the most common parasites. There are some species that are not pest-free, but somewhat they have just a few minor pests that they don't produce really real damages. There are some. We have to try.
Based on your studies, which tree species has proven to be the most efficient in sequestering CO2, and how can cities better utilize these species to combat urban pollution?
Still, it depends on the site, but we have found that, for example, common oak, Quercus robur, and black poplar were the most effective species for sequestering and store carbon dioxide, both in Italy and in Poland. That means that we shouldn't use just those two, but if your target is to reduce pollution, to increase the CO2 sequestration and storage, probably those two species must be used, in larger quantities. But there are other species that are quite effective. It depends also on the characteristics of the site.
And would you agree to characterize the tree planting and maintenance like one of the offsets for CO2 sequestration?
Sure. There is no doubt about that, yes. So far we have taken this for granted, and it is not a grant. We have to help, to invest on this, patrimony that we have, and then we'll take probably more grant from this, heritage that we have inherited so far. Because most of the trees that are now in the city have been inherited from the past, and now we have to do something to improve our heritage.
Given your extensive background in forestry and urban arboriculture, how crucial is interdisciplinary collaboration in tackling the challenges of urban stress on plant species and developing sustainable solutions?
It's fundamental. I cooperate with some other field of research, including medicine, including social science and landscape architecture and so on, because I think that we know just a part of the history, of the story, sorry. We know just a part of the story, and then some others know the rest, and all together we can, write probably the future story of the urban environment, and it's up to us.
What do you see as the most significant trends in arboriculture over the next decade, particularly in relation to urban planning and climate adaptation projects?
Probably the use of artificial intelligence can be one of the main tools to guide future planting. We have to be very careful because, like other things, we can be illuded to solve any problem with artificial intelligence. Because if you lack natural intelligence, artificial intelligence is useless. But if you have some awareness, if you have some natural intelligence, probably artificial intelligence will provide us a lot of options to improve our work and to have results in a very short time compared to, it's like, for example, to plant new plantings where trees are really needed. It's hard to find data, for example, regarding the use of antidepressants, and data about pollution, the data about temperature. The artificial intelligence can make the work that it probably needs months for us in a few minutes, and that's the most important thing. So if you use it in a very smart way, it can be a real good help for us.
You'll be speaking at the conference on European arboricultural standards in Prague next year. What key messages do you plan to convey?
I would say that urban forests and trees are vital green infrastructure that enhance or can enhance climate resilience. They can improve public health and well-being also, it's very important, and foster more sustainable cities. The cities so far have been planned to host people without thinking that we also need people that are feeling good, in good health, and they are in perfect or almost perfect well-being. As we face increasing environmental challenges, the main one probably is the climate challenge, strategic urban forest planning and management is essential for reducing the urban heat, the stormwater, to manage the stormwater, and to enhance biodiversity, as we have discussed in this conference, and also to ensure an equitable access to urban green areas to all the citizens, because sometimes this is not true, especially for some cities. And collaboration between policymakers, urban planners, arborists, and landscape architects, and so on, and communities also, is critical to have the best results for nurturing this ecosystem, this future urban ecosystem. Now we have to talk about urban ecosystem. It seems an oxymoron, but it's not, because we have in the city, we have real ecosystem that we have to care about.
You are active with young people, so what's your advice for new arborists? Where would you advise them to orientate?
There are some passionate, young people, but unfortunately most of them are not aware of their, importance. They're not asked to change the world, but they can make the world better, one tree at a time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.